Okay, so you're here because you love the power fantasy, you love the spectacle of anime action, okay, like unlimited blade works, explosion, serious series of punches. You know, the kind of game where you can have a title where it's like 100 Manslayer, and then also like you're jumping around on like a slime mount as a katana dual-wielding lolly. Yeah, or something like that, some weeb shit, I don't know. But anyways, if you are a weeb like me, you might also enjoy my anime channel, Skylent Hype. I'm gonna leave that in the down below somewhere. You're gonna find it, and we're gonna have a lot of fun talking about webcomics and anime. And okay, anyways, but you're here for the ARPG. I got some five that are hype that are coming out relatively soon. Some people call these MMOs, and they might be co-op. You might be able to jump in, run guns, slash and dash, and I don't know, maybe smash monster ass with your friends. But I wouldn't say all these are proper MMOs, just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna call them action RPGs. Run the dungeons and have a good time. Now, some of these look really ridiculous. Duh, I'm gonna be talking about them, but these ones are specifically like Japanese influence. I'm gonna be a little bit more strict with this, as well as definition for RPG. If you guys are cool with that, you're gonna find some good games. So let's keep the hype alive. Here is my top 5. And now coming in at number 5 is going to be Project Barbecue. Now, upcoming games, when it comes out, kind of matters. And this one actually does not have a release date, but it looks really good so far. And also being established in the Dungeon Fighter universe. I expected this to be called like Dungeon Fighter Online again, maybe 2, or Dungeon Fighter blah blah blah, some sort of subtitle, but it's in the Dungeon Fighter universe. However, even though at first glance it looks like a 3D Dungeon Fighter, apparently they're going the extra mile, and they are calling it an MMORPG. It does say that it's actually going to not be hub-based like other action RPG where there's a hub town. It's actually supposed to have a seamless world. Now, how seamless that actually is, because it's going to have large open field maps and then also instance dungeons, it might seem or look something similar to Guild Wars 2, which is, believe it or not, actually instance-based. It's not fully totally open world, despite kind of how it plays. So maybe that's what it's going to be like. Anyways, the gameplay I think is very explanatory, especially if you're coming from something like Dungeon Fighter. You kind of know what you're in for. This is kind of spectacle fightery. This is kind of just like beat 'em up-ish, but now brought to, I guess, third, dimensions. But I gotta be honest, from I guess like it's an old dated game, and coming now using the Unreal Engine, it actually looks like it's gonna play incredibly fast. Like, I love the rapid pace, which I guess the original game had anyways, but I just kind of didn't expect it. And it looks like it's going to do pretty well, at least in terms of having that sort of core power fantasy and speed and potentially skill ceiling of the original Dungeon Fighter. Now, coming up number 4 on my list, I'm going to slap down Genshin Impact. Now, Genshin Impact is a little bit lower because there's a little bit of dubiousness when it comes to the RPG nature of it. Now, it's proclaiming itself as an action RPG, but it's also very inspired by Breath of the Wild, which debatably is like so much of a distillment of the action RPG genre, and even some survival mechanics added in there, that it almost isn't. I don't know, people are really picky about it, but Genshin Impact also is going to be adding on some power fantasy elements with kind of like a hero collecting mechanic, hero swapping and switching. But don't get me wrong, guys. When I say inspired by Breath of the Wild, you could debatably consider it a clone. And some people look at some of the gameplay and be like, oh, I can see some similarities, but why is it a clone? Well, some people are going to call it a clone because the music is actually almost identical in theme. Some of the encounters are also copied and pasted. And a lot of the mechanics, and not just the cell shading or the style of this game, looks like Breath of the Wild. It has taken direct inspiration, but it seems like they're layering on mechanics, and hopefully that they didn't take away too much from the Breath of the Wild magic. I have a feeling that this is going to be a well-rounded game overall for those who enjoy the spectacle of anime action, but those who are looking for a Breath of the Wild successor, even though it is a clone, I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit watered down for the elements that you appreciate for that game. But in the end, I think for like an inspired, and clone-ish game, it's really crazy the amount of fidelity that this game has and the production value, and maybe that actually makes sense because Genshin Impact is actually made from the team of Honkai Impact 3rd, which is debatably like the most awesome, graphically intensive, at least anime game on mobile devices. And that's actually an action RPG too. Oh yeah, and that should be noted. Bonus points for this game, actually, you can play this on PC, but it's also going to be a mobile title as well. Halfway on my list, anime ARPG coming out soon is Grand Saga. It would make it a little bit higher if we had more gameplay footage, if we kind of knew a little bit more about it. When I first actually heard about this, I didn't even know if it was in the grand universe, the grand scheme of things. But in the end, it kind of just oozes a lot of style. I don't know, as soon as I saw this, there's just something very unique actually about the facial animations. I know that's kind of, is that weird to say? But I really feel like the characters here just kind of, yeah, they're a little bit tropey. Okay, you got your, mad scientist, whatever, warlock, lolly. I get it. You got your hardcore, busty sniper. Sure. Edgy double blade boy. I get it, guys. But in the end, Grand Saga actually looks like it could be filled with tropes and cheese, but at the same time, when it comes to anime, power fantasy, action RPG, dudes, I think that's what we want. And so Grand Saga actually is in the vein of a couple of other titles that are up and coming, such as Blue Protocol, and I think this one's going to directly compete with it whenever it does release. But hopefully this is actually enjoyable in terms of almost like a single-player campaign, but I do know that it's going to really be focusing on an online kind of games-as-a-service type of feel as well. Something to be worried about, especially coming from Asian titles, I understand, but at the same time, I am looking forward to this title because just something about anime games, and this one especially, just with its taste for that single player, that kind of story-driven gameplay, I think is going to be a lot of fun. I do kind of like me a little bit of anime. And number 2, I've got Blue Protocol, which I kind of just mentioned with Grand Saga. Blue Protocol we know much more about actually, and people are already playing it in the beta tests and things. I do actually think Grand Saga will be very similar, if not maybe even better. It's just we know much more about Blue Protocol, and it's going to come out sooner. So Blue Protocol is debatably an MMO. The open world sections are 40 players. And you know what? I'm fine with calling that an MMO. It's 40 players all jumping on like a world boss that is incredibly action-packed. Awesome. One thing that I really appreciate about Blue Protocol actually is there's obvious inspiration from Monster Hunter with the fact that it is PvE focused. That's an E, environment, your monsters, you're fighting monsters. It is going to be mostly about dungeon diving, and apparently there's going to be timed dungeon runs. It's going to be kind of pseudo-competitive, almost debatably esporty. In fact, they even have a Coliseum that is not PvP. It is competitive racing PvE, where you teams actually fight monsters. And overall, the combat and things kind of reminds me a little bit of a mix between if Monster Hunter kind of bled a little bit into the MMO field just a bit. You do have some big action-y explosions. You do kind of have some slower, more methodical, also kind of, sword and shield type of classes. And overall, there seem to be some support abilities, some AoE, kind of teamy MMO abilities that you don't quite see in Monster Hunter. The Blue Protocol seems to be kind of like an in-between there, and we definitely can vibe with that and feel with that. I'm just worried that either the MMO content is going to be boring or the dungeon content is going to be boring. I really don't want them to spread themselves too thin, because Monster Hunter games work because they just focus on monster hunting, and MMOs can work because, like PlanetSide 2, it's just jump in hundreds of players fighting each other. So I hope that this game, earns our trust eventually with, the content that they push out, because if they are going to be PvE focused, we're going to consistently need new dungeons, new monsters, and also you need to keep those events up and running as well with the open world. As long as you keep it up and running, update it consistently, then I think Blue Protocol is going to be the game that we're all really waiting for. Though on that note, it'll also need more classes, just objectively. I don't really see these classes holding up till the end of time. We're going to consistently need more, but so Maple Story, Dungeon Fighter, and many other anime action RPG, they do that, and Blue Protocol seems like it probably will follow suit. And for me, my number 1 most anticipated new anime ARPG coming out sometime hopefully soon is Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. And if you've seen a lot of grand stuff going on lately, not even in this list, but we just had a fighting game come out. Yeah, okay. It makes sense. I think that it's a big push for the IP. I maybe should watch the anime. I don't know. Is there a mobile game? I think there's a mobile game. Grand stuff and things is happening. So Grand Blue Fantasy Relink is actually taking place inside of the universe again, though in a different location. I guess there's going to be some character reprisals. I don't know. But basically, it's a Monster Hunter game. It's a Monster Hunter game. As far as I can tell, it's a Monster Hunter game where also you can have AI companions that help you out, and you're supposed to kind of do team-wide kind of Musou attacks. Sure, it's going to be fun, it's going to be ridiculous, and that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say, done, period. And even at that, it's just my number 1, because if you just watch the trailers or you see the gameplay in the background, that's it. When I'm looking for an action RPG, I literally just look for what it looks like. The video of the video game, the spectacle, which often leads me to play spectacle fighters. In fact, I just got Vanquished. I actually have missed Bayonetta. I just bought that. I need to play Bayonetta. there's a lot of games that I need to try, okay? But Grand Blue Fantasy, I can't help but look forward to the future in games like this, and I just love how it makes my eyeballs feel, and I think a lot of you guys are the same way. You play games like this, from maybe Diablo to Warframe, you just love when stuff and things happen and it massages your eyeballs, and you get that ridiculous power fantasy, and often anime games give that to you in spades, and then also they just look so good doing it too. So Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, even if it is kind of just a Monster Hunter clone, it honestly, out of all the others that I've seen from Dauntless to God Eater, dude, this one looks really freaking sick. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I do want to thank my Patreon supporters. If you actually do donate through Patreon or through the one-time link in the description, I can't thank you enough. So much, it helps me buy these games, helps me check them out, give them time and digest them and, spit out list videos or whatever. Maybe we could do some streams and play together, and I don't know, it helps stuff and things up. But much love, guys. I have a lot of fun really doing this, talking about games and hyping it up and just being a part of this community. It's great. What we're building here, we're almost at 100,000. I think we'll get there by the end of the year. Let's keep the hype alive. Anyways, these are my new anime ARPG. What do you got to say in the comments below? Let me know, dudes. Much love. I'll see you in the next one.